Today we are here for presentation. So my topic name is a place of articulation. I choose this topic. The purpose of choosing this topic is that we want to give awareness to those students who don't know about the place of articulation, who don't know that how the sounds are produced in our everyday life. So that's why I choose this topic, place of articulation. I will define my topic that what is the place of articulation. Place of articulation is also known as a point of articulation. Point of articulation means how the speech sounds are produced, where the speech sounds are produced in our mouth. We speak in our everyday life. We pronounce many sounds, but we don't know as how these sounds are produced. So that's why I choose this topic, the place of articulation. We have the oral cavity, we have the nasal cavity, we have the different areas in our mouth, but we don't know that how these sounds are produced. So that's why I choose this topic, place of articulation. Here you can focus that these are the lips. When these lips join to each other, the sounds are produced. For example, mom, pop. These are the sounds that is known as a bilabial sounds. Another is a labiodental sounds. Labio means a bottom lip and dental means the upper teeth. When a bottom lip touches to the upper teeth, the sounds are produced. That is known as a labiodental sound. My other partner will define more it.
The sounds are after this the bilabial sounds. The portion are coming the labiodental. Labio is a combination of two words. Labio means lips and the dental means teeth. The sounds are produced by the help of our upper teeth and the lower lip. Produce like a sound fa. These sounds are produced from our upper teeth and the lower lip. These sounds are called the labiodental. And the next one is the interdental. Interdental is a sound which produced by the combination of two dental cavities. The teeth, upper and lower teeth are combined to produce a sound, and the sound is produced by the tip of our by the tip of our tongue. It touches our upper lip, upper teeth. The sound is produced like the thin and thin, thick like sounds are produced from our upper lip and the tip of our tongue. And the second one is the post-alveolar sound. Post-alveolar is a part which is alveolar is a part of our oral cavity. It is these parts are called the post-alveolar. Post-alveolar are the ridge which produced by the rolling of our tongue. The sounds are produced like a shoe, and these sounds are produced by the backward of our tongue. So these are called the post-alveolar sound, and the alveolar sound are produced tip of our tongue near to our tooth, touches our palate, our alveolar, and the sound is produced. The tongue is middle of the mouth. Tongue is in only the middle of the mouth, and tongue touches our alveolar ridge. So sound are produced da, sa, za, na. These are the sound. These are called the alveolar sounds. And the glottal is the beginning of our trachea. Trachea is our windpipe, and the glottal is the beginning of trachea, which produce a sound.
Today we have presenting our presentation, and we have chosen the topic synchronic versus diachronic. And this is the study of a language. Synchronic is a study of a language in a particular age or era, while as a diachronic is a study of a language throughout the history. It means how the language changes throughout the history, and how it comes in a new, we can say that in a new form. Lot of changes occurred during its process. So these all things comes to in a diachronic. While as does not focus on the history of a language. It means the synchronic is a particular language in which we can give a specific time, and just we have to read and analyze that particular language, that how it changes within a time, with a specific time. While as here we can see the diachronic. In diachronic, it is said that throughout the history, how language changes, how symbol changes, how the dialects of the people changes, all these things comes in a diachronic. While as in a last, it studies only grammar and classification, as well as an arrangement of the words. And in a diachronic, we only compare it to languages. For example, if I can say that only the time period of a Chaucer, this only time period of a Chaucer is a specific time, so it comes only in a synchronic. While as I wanna say that compare the time of Chaucer, period of Chaucer with a modern age. When we compare, there we see a lot of changes, that how language changes, how it was used and how it is using nowadays. It's all comes in diachronic. We can say that is a comparative language and is a descriptive language. So that's all I must. Thank you.
Assalamualaikum. I am Mariam Ali Jamali from Department of English 22 batch, and my roll number is 21, and my partner is Sana Raho, her roll number is 26. So today in presenting we are presenting second language and foreign language, difference between second language and foreign language. So what is second language? Second language is a language that is used in your particular area. You can understand, you can get it, you can read and you can write in your in that language. So that's your second language, because that's not your mother language, that's not your native language, but it's used in your particular area, used in your surroundings, just like in your academy, just like your administration area, just like your educational area. It's used everywhere. But foreign language is a language that is not used in your particular area. That's not of you cannot afford it from in your surrounding, in your society. If you have to learn any foreign language, so you have to go any specific place or where the culture is present. So that's the main difference between second language and foreign language. That second language is present in your surroundings. You can understand, you can acquire, you can learn, you can read, you can write, you can write and you can understand its grammatical structure. But foreign language is a language that not in your used in your particular, that's not typically and officially accepted in your geographical area. And if you want to learn any language, so you have to go in their culture, and you have to go in their culture. You have to communicate with those people to understand that language. Just like English in South Asian countries, just like Pakistan, just like India, its English is second language because it's used, its national area, educational system or any professional system, it's used in daily life. But Spanish in just like Spanish in India or Spanish in Pakistan, it's not used here. It's if you want to learn any Spanish language, so you have to go in Tunisia or Algeria to learn this language. So that's why it's a foreign language. But English is a second language because it's used. It's not your native language, not your mother language, but it's used in your particular area, so you can understand, you can acquire this language from the surrounding. So I will tell you about the foreign language. Foreign language क्या होती है जो particular area में use ना होती हो. Just like Spanish India में, China में English.
Start with the great name of Allah, who is the ringmaster of our soul. I would like to start with a quote of Allama Iqbal that उठ आँख खोल आँख ज़मीं देख फलक देख समा देख मशरिक से निकलते हुए सूरज को ज़रा देख. So today we are here to presenting our presentation, which the main topic of our presentation is language and culture. So we are presenting here culture and how language conveys the culture, how language transmits the culture. So there is a quotation like language is a road map of a culture. Language is a road that conveys, that picks you up toward the culture. So the center part of our presentation, this is basically describing the culture. So this is the greetings of in all languages, how people greet in Spanish, how people greet in English, how people greet in Hindi. So this is the language, and these all are the elements of our culture, how this language conveys the culture. Culture creates the language and language shapes the culture. So these all are the aspects of the language. So further my partner will define you well.
These all are the different aspects of culture, as you can see in the picture, that this center part is representing the language, and these are the aspects of culture. Now I'm going to tell you that how these aspects are representing to the culture and the language together. If we talk about celebration, that we celebrate our difference and our same interest with each other through a medium of language of the different culture. If we talk about the jokes, the humor is the representation of language. We have watched the stage plays, different cultural plays which have the humor that is representing in the language. The third one in clothing and dress. Every language has a specific way to dress up. That is showing the culture of that language. Number 4, there is art. Art is the most important element, aspects of culture that is representing by a language. Art has its own language. For example, when you saw any paintings or any drawing, there was a message which is hidden into that, which show that art has its own language. That is the aspects of culture. Food is also one of the most important aspects of culture. The different types of food. For example, if we are aware of a person that he is Chinese, so our mind will tell us that which kind of food we'll prefer to eat. So food is also dependent upon the language and the culture. The other one is manners. Every language and culture has its own morals, its own values, which is represented by the language. For example, if we are saying please, hello, yeah, thank you, sorry to anyone, these are the manners of the culture we are saying through the language. Religion is the most important part of any culture. All the books written for the religion are translated into different languages for the understanding of mankind. That is representing that how language is important for the expression of culture in religion.
So the last part is like working schedules. Working schedules is also come in culture. So if someone is going for a work, so he or she cannot start working immediately. So first of all, there should be a language to convey what to do, what not to do. So that is the working schedule that comes into a culture. As you know all about the religion, manners, food, folk arts. Folk arts is a part of an art. Folk art comes in art. So we highlighted here folk arts, like we have different cultures and different dancing styles, different arts. So that comes into folk arts, and then clothes and dressing. So these all are conveying that language is the main thing that conveys the culture, that shows the culture, that transfers the culture. So this is all about our presentation, what is language and language, how language conveys the culture. Thank you.
Assalamu alaikum. My name is Ujjwala Ligari and my partner name is Alia Kamrani, and today here we are presenting our poster presentation. My topic is language and the brain. Introduction of language and the brain. So relationship between language and brain is called neurolinguistic. Some parts of brain produce our language when we speak words, language, sentences, words. Our mind creates language. Our mind creates language, and our mind are divided into two parts of the left side of the brain.
Neurolinguistic is the study of neural mechanism of the human brain that controls our understanding, comprehension, and language acquisition.
Assalamu alaikum. I am Misbah Siddiq. Today we present here animal and human language and the difference between animal and human language. Animal language is that the animal can't express their feelings, emotions through words. They can express their feelings, emotions through sounds. They can't produce language. And human language is that they can express their feelings, their emotions through words. They can understand the language, what they are speaking. They are worldwide. Humans can understand and share their ideas, their emotions through language.
Properties of human language: productivity, displacement. Productivity is a property of human language. It is Noam Chomsky said that humans has power to produce new words, infinite words and sentence, infinite words, infinite alphabets.
Assalamu alaikum. This is Sumaya Sumro in front of you. So my poster presentation topic is on phonetics. So phonetics is about the study of speech sounds in a human language. That how sounds are produced, how they are transmitted, and how they are received. This study is known as phonetics. So phonetics is further divided into these three main branches. First one is articulatory phonetics, second one is auditory phonetics, and third one is acoustic phonetics. Auditory articulatory phonetics means how speech sounds are produced, how they are produced from our vocal cord, and then the acoustic phonetics means how the speech sounds are transmitted, what I am saying and what you are listening. This transmission is known as acoustic phonetics. And then the auditory means taken from the audience, means whatever audience is receiving from us. Thank you so much.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Let us start the greatest name of Allah, who is the Rahman Rahim. I am Gul Muhammad from Dudu Batch BS English. So today our presentation topic is the substantial form. I will define the form. The arrangement of the sound and symbols in the proper manners that in the form. There is an example, there is an individual sounds and there is a combination of sounds. There is an individual breaks of the substance and there is a form individual. There is a wall. So levels of the form is defined into the two parts. Number one is the expression and number two is the context. The expression means the shape, form of the elements, and it is also regardless of the meaning. And the content, level of the meaning and grammar of the semantics. So sometimes our sentence is correct, but it not give the meaning. There is an example, the bachelor give birth to a baby. So there is a correct sentence and there is a form and it is a shape, but it's not give a meaning. It is a doubt that how can bachelor give the baby. So in linguistics, the form and the substance are the equal units and the elements in the language. But sometimes our chemistry department, the atoms and the molecules, in physics, the electrons and the protons, morphology and morphemes. So form is the concerns of the linguistic study. That's all. Thank you.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. So our topic is origin of language. So nowadays we are speaking a language which is well developed, but the real question is when that language was started. So these are some of the theories that was presented by the philologist and the linguist Max Muller in mid-19th century. So these are first of all the theories. Baba theory suggests us that the language was started by the imitation of the natural sounds of the animals and the birds in this world. And another one is yo-yo theory. Yo-yo theory suggests that the speech emerges from the physical exertion. While we work together in a collective rhythm, so we produce some type of sounds. That was the yo-yo theory. Then another one is fufu theory. Fufu theory suggests that the speech comes from the automatic vocal responses. Like when we have some kind of pain and some sort of joyness, so we produce some type of sounds. So that was the reason when language was started. Another one is Lala theory. Lala theory suggests that the speech was made by the expressing your love, your poetry, your playfulness, and these all. Then another one is Ding Dong theory. Ding Dong theory suggests that the language was started by the onomatopoeia. Means when human started naming the objects, there was a natural correspondence between the object and the word we are using for that object. Like there is a word mama, so we use the word mother. So mama was actually present in this word before. Thank you.
Hello my dear friends, Assalamu alaikum. This is Amar Jalil Diary and today my presentation topic is the morphology. Basically the morphology is a branch of the linguistic which deals with the study of how the words are made, and it includes the morpheme. Morpheme is the smallest meaningful unit of the language, and there are the two main types of the morpheme. First is the free morpheme and second is the bound morpheme. Free morpheme and the bound morpheme also has the two types, and first is the lexical morpheme and other is the functional morpheme. And the bound morpheme also has the two types. First the derivational morpheme and second is the inflectional morpheme. So free morpheme are those morphemes which are complete by themselves. It means they do not have a need of any other morpheme to complete their meaning. They are complete by themselves. For example, girl, the book, and the bound morpheme are those morphemes which are not complete by themselves. It means they have need of any other morpheme. They depend on the other morpheme to complete their meaning. For example, two letters, when I attach the word teacher, it becomes a teacher. Then it gives a complete sense or a complete meaning. And the first type of the free morpheme is a lexical morpheme. Lexical morpheme are those morphemes which have a clear lexical meaning. For example, table, chair, cup, and the functional morpheme not have a clear lexical meaning, but they act as a function like this, that, and, or. And the bound morpheme also has two types. So first is the derivational morpheme and second is the inflectional morpheme. First derivational morpheme, when the derivational morpheme attach with a word, they create a new word and change its grammatical category. For example, beauty. If I add the word full with the beauty, it becomes a beautiful. And then we have inflectional morpheme. Inflectional morpheme are those morpheme, they never change the grammatical category of the word but change the number. For example, boy, I attach the letter S with the word boy, it becomes a boys. So this is overall about the morphology.
Assalamualaikum, this is Tawfiq Mugheri, and today my presentation topic is about the sign versus symbol. First of all, I will tell you about the who introduced these both concepts. So Mr. Ferdinand de Saussure, he was a Swiss linguist. He described these concepts in his course in general linguistics. So he said that sign, he has described about the sign that sign is not a single entity, it is a double entity. It means it is not a single word, it is a double word. It consists on two inseparable elements. Those are signifier and signified. So signifier, it means the physical existence, and the signifier, the mental concept of something. So signifier, it means the systematic arrangement of the letters. For example, you have the apple or red, and when we say apple, so the picture of apple comes in our mind, so it will become the signified. It means in a nutshell we can say that signified is a physical concept. In a nutshell we can say signified is a visual and signified is a mental concept. So those are both are psychological.
Assalamu alaikum. Both signs and symbols are graphical presentations, so it can be interpreted differently by people from different backgrounds. So that's a tree word. Signified, that it is a primary relationship between signified and signifier. So it may also hope and a growth. So it is not only a sign, but it becomes a symbol. So that is a symbol.
Assalamu alaikum. Our topic is morphology. Morphology is a branch of linguistics in which we study the function or the formation of the words, how words are formed. However, in syntax we also study about a word, but in that we study how words are put together, means relation of the words. But in morphology we study the formation, structure of the words or morpheme. Morpheme is the basic and meaningful unit. It has two types, free morpheme and bound morpheme. Free morpheme are those morphemes which stand alone, it is meaning, means they stand as a word, they give complete meaning. It has like a child, car, boy. It has two types, lexical morpheme and functional morpheme. Lexical morpheme are those from which by adding another word we can get a new word. Like we have noun, verb, adverb, kind, we add suffix ness, then we get kindness. And other manage, and we add suffix ment, we got management. And other is functional morpheme. Functional morpheme are those, they have grammatical structure in the language, means we cannot make new word by adding another word to functional morpheme. Like articles, conjunction, preposition, pronouns, we cannot get any new word by adding another word to these morphemes.
Today my topic is morphology. Morphology is the study of the morphemes, and my topic is about the bound morphemes. Bound morphemes cannot stand alone its meaning, means they cannot stand without its meaning. They have its own meaning. Then there are two types of bound morpheme. Number one is the derivational morpheme, and number two inflectional morphemes. What are the derivational morphemes? Derivational morphemes, we make new words by changing our class or using suffix or affix. For example, here is the example, class maintaining. We maintain a class, we maintain its position. For example, here is the example, anti and corruption. Anti is a prefix and corruption is a noun. Here is also we got a word anti-corruption, means it remains same, it don't change its class. And there is another example, class changing, it changes its class. Here is an example, slow is an adjective, ly is a suffix, and we make new word is a slowly, and slowly is a adverb. It's called class changing. And number two is the kind of the bound morpheme is the inflection morpheme. Its definition is that class maintaining morphemes are all suffix. All suffix are the inflection morphemes. Here is an example, plural. When we make plurals, we make s or es, means all suffix. We use here all suffix.
And number 2 is a passive voice. Sometimes we use passive voice, and sometimes we use comparative degree or superlative degree, and sometimes we use past or progressive. For example, ing. That's all.
Assalamu alaikum. My name is Asim Raza Jamali. I am studying in Sabu SBA, Sabu Sabah University. Today my topic is 5 basic theories of linguistics. So the first of all, Bobo theory. So Bobo theory based on the notation of speech that arose through people imitating the sounds of environment. This theory is deal with the sounds of natural sounds. For example, moo, mew, cuckoo. It is called the Bobo theory. The second one is that the poo-poo theory. It is this theory is deal with the sounds when we are feeling pain, anger. We are creating a sounds such like that ouch, oh, and etc. And after then the yo, he, who theory. This theory is deal with the sounds when the labor working together they creating a sounds. Come on, carry on. This likes. And further then I am call my participant. Come on, do this. Hurry up. This is called yo, he, who theory. And the ding dong theory postulate their speech because people reacted to the world around the sound of symbolism. Symbolism means the things, sounds of things. For example, boom, crash, and oink, sounds of the attaching the stones like that. And the lala theory. It is theory deals with the speech of romantic era. The sounds of love, poetic, and other emotions is called lala theory.
So our topic is English language history and change. As you can see, it is in 4 portions. First there is Old English, then Middle English, then Modern English, and language tree is here as well. So first of all, Old English came when the Denmark tribes attacked on Britain and ruled over them. So this came in 450 AD. So it was influenced by Latin language, and there was no structure. There was structure, but it was free in a word order and sentence. As you can see, there's a sentence of it right here, and then there's a Middle English which came in 1100 AD, and it had French influence. Old English and French influence mixture there was. It had the same structure of modern English. So there's a language tree which is Indo-European, which is more focused on where modern English came from. As you can see, there's a modern English on the top where it is coming from, Germanic, etc. And there are its points introduced by Franz Bopp in 1816, refers to the family of language in Europe and Asia. And the last point, there are about 455 languages in this Indo-European tree. So,
Assalamu alaikum. Basically, the Old English when during the 5th century, 3 tribes, Anglo-Saxons and Jews, were invade and conquered the Britain and tried to speak different languages. When they speak, because their language speaks and mix up, it immerses all English. And after that, when the Normans comes and influence the Latin language, many Latin words come into English language. And during the 11th century, when a Frenchman, William, come to Britain and influenced the French language. At that time, French was the ruling class language. After that, Middle English, also known as Chaucer era. And then Modern English. From the 15th century, the Shakespeare era, the first printing press machines were invented and many books were printed. Many people more know about English. At that period, Shakespeare introduced 1700 new words and listed a dictionary. Until this dictionary comes, they have no structure. They are structure free. It has some structure, subject, verb, and object. And modern is also a structured and advanced language. Thanks all.
Assalamu alaikum everyone. I am Kashish Sohu and my group member is Adawakas. So today's our presentation topic is overview of animal language. What is animal language? Communication in animals. Animals communicate with each other thought. So many sounds, things, and movements. And the way of communication in animals language, there are 4 communication of animal language. Number 1 is noise, smell, color, visual, and language is set of verbal and non-verbal. So animal language is inherited. Can animal listen and understand us? An animal just understand the tone of adult. language. Does that birds can talk are in capacity, and animal language is lack of powerful system, and animal language lack of productivity, and animal language lack of displacement. Thank you.
Assalamualaikum. Thank you so much for giving me this opportunity. So I am here for discussing about what is language first. Language is a set of any verbal and non-verbal conventions that humans use for expressing their ideas, imaginations, thoughts through the expressions and for all those things which they have in their daily life. So like that, animals also have some methods or ways for making conversations or talking to each other. So these methods are the collection of these methods, we can say the system by which animal can communicate with each other. Now let's talk about as we know that animal language is inherited, let's justify that thing with an example. Just suppose a baby is born from his birth we put away him from the common environment and keep him in such an environment where there is no any human or no anyone who is talking. So after when we bring him back after about 15 to 20 years, he will be unable to produce any single word because he is not familiar and humans. This shows that animal language is not inherited. But on the other hand, when we do same thing, same experiment with a bird, with a pet, with a dog, then he will be able to speak or to talk all of those things which the other animals are speaking or talking. So that justifies that human language is inherited and not like human that they can learn the language. And animals just understood the tone of speaker, not the actual language. So by justifying this, you have saw so many dogs who do such things on the commands of their masters. And they do so many things which is said to them. They do because they are taught, not they have. Just suppose, for example, if we are putting 1,000 dogs in an environment and teaching them, then the next dogs are next animals which learn those things which their bigger dogs are touched dogs are doing. So this shows that the animals can just copy the actions or the commands or do such things which they have taught. They can't learn anything, they just copy the things which they are taught. Thank you so much.
Assalamualaikum, I am Hina Hussain from BS English 22 batch. Today is our poster presentation. Our topic was language history and change. We have discussed about language family tree. There are many languages, but we have discussed Indo-European language. In Indo-European language, we have Sanctum group and Cantum group. In Sanctum group, we have talked about Eastern languages. Eastern languages spoken in the Eastern area are in the Sanctum group, and the Western languages spoken in the Western areas are in the Cantum group. In Sanctum group, it is further divided into 4 branches: Indo-Iranian, Albanian, Armenian, and Baltic Slavic. Then in Cantum group, we have further 4 branches: Hellenic, Celtic, Italic, and Germanic. In Indian Indo-Iranian, we have Urdu, Hindi, Persian, Balochian. Albanian, we have Illyrian. In Armenian, we have Armenian language. In Baltic Slavic, we have Russian, Sorbian, and Slav. Then in the Cantum group, in Hellenic, we have Greek dialects. The most important dialect is Attic, which was spoken in the city of Athens. Then in Celtic, we have Welsh, Irish, and Manx language. In Italic, we have Latin, Umbrian, and Oscar. Then we have Germanic. Germanic is further divided into 3 branches: North Germanic, West Germanic, and East Germanic. In East Germanic, we have Gothic. Then in North Germanic, we have Swedish and Danish. And in West Germanic, we have got our English language. And here Anglo-Frisian was developed into Anglo-Saxon. Then Anglo-Saxon was developed into Middle English, and from Middle English we have got Modern English. Then we have described history of English language: Old English, Middle English, Early Modern English, and Modern English. Thank you.
Assalamu alaikum. I am present first language acquisition. First language acquisition is the process whereby children acquire their languages. All humans have capability to learn languages. First language acquisition is also known as native language, mother tongue. and child language. There are some stages of first language. There are first language going. This is the stage child start responding. This stage is start first month to 6th month. Babbling start usually occurring 3 to 4 months. In this stage, children produce the short, unsensible words. Now, heliportic to one word stage. This stage start 12 to 18 months. Most babies start simple word. Means one word start like Baba, Mama, Dada, Dadi. And now two word stages is started into 18 to 20 months. In this stage, child start vocabulary moves beyond 15 words. Now, telegraphic multi-word speech. This stage started 2.5 year old. This is designed as a form or communication and consisting of simpling or move to sentences.
These stages are very essential for language acquisition as it provides a basic structure for our learning. As we have already mentioned, cooing. In cooing, children start to imitate sound of his caregivers, especially his parents. And the second stage, babbling, which is lasts from 3 to 4 months. In this stage, the child starts to make babical, nonsensical voices. And the third stage is holophastic stage, which lasts from 12 to 18 months. In this stage, the child makes use of first word phrases like mama, like doggy, like baba and dada. And the fourth stage is two-word stages. It lasts from 18 to 20 months. In this stage, the child makes use of 2 words or phrases like Baba came, Mama wash. Okay, the child is expressing his needs through 2 words. And the last stage is telegraphic stage, which is also called multi-word stage. It lasts from 2 to half-year-old children. In this stage, basically, the child vocabulary expands and he'll start to learn multiple sentences, and he also know how to make the use of sentences. So telegraphic stage is the last stage and the final stage, which can later help the children to develop a basic language which will helpful in his adult child.